Beyond Black Mirror. 15 million merits. Side 1.
If you haven't had the delight of seeing them yet, each episode of Charlie Brooker's Black Mirror is a frighteningly warped insight into a slightly altered version of our not-too-distant future, which critiques the present day. In an interview, Brooker professed that the series was like a box of dark chocolates, riffing on the famous quote from Forrest Gump, "You never know what you're going to get, but it's going to be bleak." This time on Sight and Sound, we're going to look at 15 Million Merits, which is the second episode of the first season of Black Mirror. In my eyes, this storyline is the best to start with, as it is the one that most accurately represents Brooker's own voice and the overall message he is trying to convey to us through Black Mirror. Before it's too late. The episode draws on two things that he is best known for: video games and ranting. The overall aesthetic of the episode gives the feeling that the occupants of the pod-like structure we are introduced to is akin to a large games console. Even our hero's name, Bing, is a reference to this. It's onomatopoeic, eerily similar to the noise that an Xbox or PlayStation makes when you turn it on. Also, at the end of 15 Million Merits, we see Bing's ascent from bike to on-camera commentator. The second of his rants is one that could be an extract from Brooker's own of the Channel 4 series, 10 O'Clock Live. It also could be said to be a more complete representation of the themes and tone that are within the rest of the series, touching on several motifs that will pop up in all other episodes. So this is where we're starting. This will by no means be a complete discussion of all the themes and references within the episode. Brooker has packed so many interesting ideas surrounding control, freedom, creativity, and technology in that I can't possibly cover them all in the time I have. But I've tried to highlight some of the more interesting ideas contained within the show. In 15 Million Merits, we are introduced to Bing, who lives simply to pedal away on a static bike in front of a screen in order to earn credits, the currency of the world he inhabits. He is in the fortunate position that he has inherited 15 million of them from his brother, and thus can exist rather comfortably without having to worry too much about the consequences of the world around him. The world is reminiscent of the 1970s sci-fi epic Logan's Run, sparse, technological, and populated only by youthful inhabitants. It shows us a future where the developments in technology have created a more effective and pleasant form of social control, which the society seems to be in step with, doing away for the need of any totalitarian structure forcing them to obey. Although not ever directly referenced, it can be inferred that there is a punishment that comes with refusing to pedal, as those in the pod wake up every day to continue to do just that, without being coerced to do so. Being a slave to the mindless, meaningless, mundane task of constantly pedaling brings to mind the daily 9-to-5 grind experienced by most in the Western world. It is a place forewarned by German philosopher and political theorist Herbert Marcuse. In One-Dimensional Man and Repressive Tolerance, Marcuse warned that advanced industrial society would create false needs, which integrate individuals into the existing system of production and consumption via mass media, advertising, and industrial management. Read terrifying dystopia similar to Aldous Huxley's Brave New World or the Compulsion Games title We Happy Few. The populace of 15 Million Merits are controlled because they want to be controlled. We all secretly crave fascism, but don't like it being called that. The most efficient forms of managing us are the ones we have accepted or demanded. The greatest theme within 15 Million Merits and across Black Mirror is our addiction to screens. The title of the series itself is a reference to the notion that once an LCD, tablet, or phone screen goes dark, we are only left with a black reflective surface to gaze at. Brooker said that he found this a cold and horrifying experience, forcing us to look upon ourselves at a time when we are not typically expecting to. It gives us a chance at a moment of self-reflection, straight after the screen in front of us has ceased being active. In 15 Million Merits, the characters are accompanied by a screen for their entire waking day. The bikes that they grind away on have large screens in front of them, which placates the rider during their toil. In their engagement with them, they forget the blandness and the absence of real, natural things around them. Even the pod that they are allowed to rest in is surrounded by 4 walls of oppressive interactive surfaces. It seems that the only thing that a rider is able to spend the credits that they earn from their labour on, besides food, is skipping the pop-up adverts that pollute their vision at random intervals. What is interesting is that the penalty for not watching an ad is much greater than buying a single piece of most basic sustenance. The screen becomes the master, and it must be obeyed and looked upon at all times. Away from day-to-day spending, our characters use their hard-earned credits to customize their doppels, the tiny avatars which represents them in the digital world. As so much time is spent looking at screens, these might as well be the actual representations of their physical self, and throws up questions surrounding simulacra and simulation as hypothesized by John BottleRocket. BottleRocket claims that our current society has replaced all reality and truth with symbols and signs, and that the human experience is now only a representation of the real. Who or what is the real being? Most of the interaction that he has with others takes place in a virtual world. The physical form that our characters have is seemingly only used to pedal or create energy, bringing to mind films such as The Matrix, where BottleRocket's questions are once again considered on screen. However, the version presented to us in 15 million merits is all the more terrifying, as it has tangible links back to our own society, with our obsession with the customization of our online personas across various media and the importance we place upon creating and maintaining them. Frequently, we go as far as spending our own real earnings to alter them, if not directly, then indirectly. Brooker has written at length about the representation of the working class in the media, in the Guardian newspaper, and discussed it on his TV series Weekly Wipe. In 15 million merits, he continues this work with the depiction of a subordinate class to the peddlers, who clean up the trash dropped on the floor behind their bikes. In a game that the peddlers play to pass the time, the yellow-suited workers are the enemies in a first-person shooter, and are the figures of ridicule in the media that some watch on their bikes. What is interesting is that they are all shown to be overweight. This places them as unable to access the systems, the bikes, which will bring them out of their assumed poverty. A striking comment on the inability for many to gain a foothold in the processes which will allow for social mobility within society. In the narrative, this is a direct reminder of the peddlers that it could be worse and that they need to continue with their labour, otherwise end up in a lower tier than they are already. What is interesting is that they are also encouraged to abuse and degrade those on a lower strata by the media, which spills out in both verbal and physical abuse in the real world. This is potentially a direct reference to the sensationalist poverty porn programming that was widely prevalent at the time of 15 million merits release, and which Brooker is on record as disagreeing with.